Hello everybody, Flamin' Shark back with another video, and today we're going to be jumping in to part 6 of our blind read reaction, whatever the hell you want to call this, of Danganronpa 0. I'm really excited to continue our Danganronpa journey as we start to kind of approach the end of Danganronpa 0. I mean, 58%. I don't know. I'd like to finish this in 3 more videos. I might actually be recording this if... I don't know. We'll see how I feel by the time I finish this and when I finish this, but I am thinking about potentially recording 2 sessions of Danganronpa 0. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm recording this on Saturday, so at 3:40 in the morning, so not too long before you see this. You will probably see this session tomorrow, and then, like I said, I'm looking to hopefully record the following session as well, which you guys will probably see, in a week or so, give or take. But yeah, this is really looking forward to some more Danganronpa 0, and I'm really excited. Like, obviously, where we left off last, like, things are getting really spicy. Like, Matsuda just killed a man. That was the last thing we left off on. You could actually kind of see the remnants of that whenever I put the actual story on the screen, because chapter 5 is the middle of the page. So the beginning of chapter 5 of volume 2 is the middle of the page. So you see kind of the final lines of volume 2, chapter 4 at the top of the screen. Like I said, probably don't have it on the screen yet until we actually start reading, but you get what I'm saying. And it was really interesting. Like, obviously, we started volume 2. We got some really good stuff with Ryoko. Obviously, like, we saw some people that I didn't necessarily think we would see. Mukuro Ikusaba showed up, which was a little surprising, and then Makoto Naegi showed up, which was very surprising. I definitely wasn't expecting to see Makoto in this story. But they did it as kind of a nice, like, wink and nudge, like, hey, we get this little moment with Makoto, and it's kind of like, hey, that's the boy. He's a really interesting, it's like, hey, here's the main character of the first game, and possibly the franchise. Still unclear at this point, honestly, if I would give him that nod or not. But, yeah, it's like, hey, cool reference. Obviously, at the time this came out, there was only one game, so it was like, hey, it's the boy. And nobody necessarily would have even, at this point when this originally was released in Japan, nobody would really know what a Danganronpa 2 game would look like. So when you read this from the perspective of having only played the first game, you're like, oh, that's the main character. Like, that's really cool. Obviously, Kyoko's been getting involved in the story as well. So, like, a lot of nice callbacks to the first game with characters' names we know, like Mukuro, like Kyoko, like Makoto. Obviously, Junko's been involved throughout, but of course, Junko is the catalyst of everything pretty much in this story. And, yeah, this has been really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to what happens next, because I feel like we're kind of at that tipping point. Like, obviously, Matsuda is going down a dark path in order to protect Ryoko, because it seems like Matsuda is aware of what's going on. And again, it seems like what's going on is what I've been pushing since, like, I don't actually know when I first said it, but it was at some point after Junko showed up. It like hit me like lightning, and at first I was like, okay, this is a crackpot theory. I almost didn't want to say it. And I think I even waited a little while to say it, and then ever since then, I feel like the series has primarily only been giving me more and more circumstantial evidence to back up my claim. The problem is I don't have anything solid, and that's the way this is written, because you're not supposed to know. I do feel like it's written to the point where you are supposed to figure it out at some point and kind of be like, and have that aha moment. I think I had it earlier than I probably was supposed to. But again, I had it early enough that I didn't actually really believe what I was saying, but I was like, there's pieces here, and then it's only, like, since then has felt more and more right. But there's certainly the possibility that I'm just wrong, but at this point, I would kind of be surprised. Like, at this point, I'd say I'm at least at 50% confidence that I'm right about Junko and Ryoko. And if I'm wrong, I'd be very curious where this is going, because now I feel like that just has to be the plot twist at the end of the... I don't know what the plot twist would be at the end of this story, right? Like, because I could see, like, this story, unlike Danganronpa 1 and, 2 or whatever, this story is going to end very tragically. It's very clear this is not going to have a happy ending, and it's going to be really interesting, but I'm excited for it nonetheless. Good stuff. Anyways... let's actually get to some Danganronpa 0. Although there are several cafeterias scattered throughout the campus of Hope's Peak Academy, the one everyone calls the third school cafeteria in the East District is the most popular by far, apparently. During lunch hours, it's filled not only with students, but even teachers and staff, all lined up in a queue. It seems the secret behind this particular cafeteria's popularity is the student they call the ultimate cook. Hey! That's a shout out to the boy that likes to be called the ultimate chef. Teruteru Hanamura, I believe? Yeah. I'm like 99% sure. It definitely was Hanamura. It was the Hanamura Diner. And it's lore. This is Danganronpa 2. So that's actually a kind of tease for Danganronpa 2. That's awesome. Who boasts of his own unique recipes. His food isn't governed by style or cuisine or even by common sense. And I hear it's so addictive you can't help but feel like it must contain drugs or something. But come to think of it, it doesn't really matter since I've forgotten how addictive it is in the first place. Well, nevertheless, even now, the third school cafeteria was so busy there wasn't a single seat available. For someone like me, standing all alone, this atmosphere was anything but comfortable. I'm here too, you know. Did I say something out loud? I told you I'm the ultimate spy from the 77th class, Yudo Kamishiro. Come on! How many times do I have to introduce myself? As he spoke, he formed an X with his arms. Damn it, seems like we have bad chemistry. And here I was, praying to God that we'd be a good match. Too bad. Fucking redhead, big titties, forgetful. That's like my 3 biggest fetishes. No. What kind of god were you praying to? In any case, it seems Kamishiro and I certainly do have bad chemistry. Forgettable Kamishiro and forgetful me. Damn, that's weirdly poetic. I'm with it, Ryoko. Okay. In his hands, he was holding what looked as though it were watered down milk. Well, whatever. What's more important is starting our conversation. Right, we could do that, but I looked around at the students bustling through the cafeteria. Why come here, of all places? Kamishiro wagged a short finger at me as he chided me. It's bad form to answer such a question in front of outsiders, so listen close. If anything, this is the perfect place for it. If we talked about this somewhere with only a few people around, someone would be able to overhear us easily. It's a theory of mine that we should hide like we're extras in an adult video. What? What? Come on, man. What the fuck? I'm not even kidding when I say what does that mean, because like maybe I'm just like maybe this is like a rare case of me being fucking naive as shit, but like is the joke that like, cuz I feel like in most like adult videos, isn't it usually like the only people in the video are just the people doing the scene, like the porn stars? Like, is there really like, I mean, I guess there might be some scenarios, but like, is the joke that like, is that the joke that we're gonna be like so unnoticeable? But like, this is a crowd of people. Like, I'm so confused. Like, I actually think that you guys in the comments have to explain that joke to me because I don't get it. Like, legitimately, am I just being like too naive and too innocent and I just don't understand what the fuck is going on? Like, I literally actually think that like a lewd joke went over my head, which I don't know if I should be happy or disappointed about that. So what you're saying is if we need to talk about something important, we should pretend we're just having a normal chat. What I'm saying is it'd be lonely if I was here by myself. Our casual exchange thus far was buried in the sounds of the busy students around us. Makes sense. See? No one cares about our conversation, do they? Kamishiro had a huge grin on his face, as though he had just committed some fantastic prank. Without delay, he moved on to the main topic of conversation. There's a reason I wanted to talk to you as soon as possible, big sis. Did anyone go to your room this morning? Did they... It's fine if you've forgotten. Just check your notebook. A bit surprised, I did as I was told and took out Ryoko Otonashi's memory notebook before looking through it. Ah! I remembered it as soon as I saw the words and practically shouted in response. It is interesting about Ryoko's memory that, so she writes stuff down in her notebook and like she remembers things, and like not always, but especially if they're more recent, she will remember things that happened like once she gets that reminder from the notebook. It's like her memory clicks, which I think also it helps imply that her that there is like some psychosomatic thing going on here, that like her memory, it's almost like it is like a lock and key situation. Like it is some weird like mental response either to her, you know, extreme love for Matsuda, or more likely like a like sealing away her demon, right? Like a mental lock on Junko type of nonsense. You know what I mean? Like, it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm wondering if we're gonna get like an explanation for Ryoko's memory, because I definitely think it's either like it feels like something that like Ryoko somehow mentally did to herself, or Matsuda did to Ryoko. And I think both of those are fairly viable given the information we have up to this point. I remember. I know. It was Junko Enoshima. That girl suddenly came into my room. Huh? Shiro suddenly leaned forward. So then that person really was Junko Enoshima. I knew it. Yep, seems like that wiretap I put in your room worked perfectly. Holy shit. Huh? The haws, too. The haws, man. Because it's something about hope and despair that equals a lot of huh. Because I'm pretty sure the kings of huh are the people voiced by Megumi and Bryce and Junko. Kings and queens of huh. Say, Kamishiro? What? What did you just say just now? Did you say a wiretap? Yeah, I said that. I said wiretap. What about it? A wiretap? Yes, it's a common device used for eavesdropping. I quickly stood from my chair. How is that normal? I yelled at the top of my lungs. Regular average people don't use those things. I mean, it's normal for a spy, though. Despite my objections, Kamishiro's face was as calm as ever. Let's not go on about the wiretap. It was crime prevention. Wiretaps aren't just used to prevent crimes. So you noticed. Clap, clap, clap. As he verbally applauded me, he withdrew a giant paper bag from under his chair. Immediately, the boy shoved his hand into the bag and pulled out a pastry. Ah, sugar twist donut. As he cheered by himself, he happily crammed it into his mouth. That's a little rude. I have no idea what you just said. Kamishiro swallowed down the donut that had been stuffed into his mouth before responding. I said, not just you, big sis. I don't want you to misunderstand me. It's just part of the job. If we're talking all together, I guess I've wiretapped around this many people. Kamishiro held up all his fingers. What? 10 people? He shook his head. 100. 100? Each figure was supposed to be 10 people? Each finger. Almost one for every Dalmatian, am I right? What a weird reference. Okay, 101 Dalmatians. Hey, you know, Cruella's a good movie. I like that movie, actually. Quite a bit. You know, maybe, you know, it didn't hurt who was playing Cruella, but like, you know, I don't know. My inner girl approved of that movie in various ways. Anyways, As I stood there, stunned by the unexpected amount of people he had claimed, he explained his logic. The reason is that I rotate between girls pretty often. What? That way I can still have fun regardless of if it's someone's time of the... That way I can still have fun regardless of if it's someone's time of the month. I mean, the funny thing is, there's so many things wrong with that. What the fuck? That is... God damn, this guy. It's so funny. It's like, is this just like a theme of Danganronpa that the little people, like the short little people, like the tiny motherfuckers are all perverts? Because like obviously it's ironic because we're in the ultimate cook's domain right now. But like, I mean, so far I feel like there's been two. I think these are the only two characters that have been fucking tiny, is Kamishiro and Hanamura, Teru. And both of them were, like, tiny, and both of them were massive perverts. I think the two biggest I mean, there are other... I don't want to say there's no other perverts, because, like, Junko is a perv, but, like, Junko, because everything is, like, despair-related, like, it's... She's a special case, but she is a bit of a perv. Yeah, no, I'm actually struggling... Because I feel like... Oh, I guess there was Hifumi was a bit of a perv. But even then, like, Hifumi just... For all that he was sussy, you know, I like Toko in some ways as well. But, like, I don't know. I feel like the two, like, truly most perverted characters so far have been Kamishiro and Teru. Anyways, he puffed out his chest. Wait, that part's not an important detail. Anyways, how did you manage to wiretap 100 people's rooms? It's easy with my talent. Sneaking into places like the girls' bathroom or locker room is a piece of cake. Do something else with that piece of cake. Oh, but it's nice and soft with extra cream. What the fuck, man? Like, why? This has gotten out of hand so fast. Not just out of hand, out of leg, head, back, out of everything. Either way, I say let bygones be bygones, the boy suddenly announced, dismissing the entire wiretapping conversation as if it were nothing and instead starting on a different subject. The worst part is, Hope's Peak would probably approve of this. Like, in the sense that, like, he's utilizing his incredible talent to gain an advantage in life, even if that advantage is to fuck women. Like, it's really sus, but, like, it kind of fits the, like, Hope's Peak agenda, because, like, Hope's Peak is all about cultivating talent, and we've learned to what extent, obviously, through the first two games, and in the end, they wouldn't approve of the actions, but they wouldn't care, because talent supersedes all. That's the kind of ultimate, like, doctrine of Hope's Peak Academy. That's why they're treating the Izuru Kamakura situation the way they are. And, you know, it's at the root of all of the problems with Hope's Peak, and why, from a societal perspective, something like Hope's Peak is kind of a parody of the elite schools and, like, the, you know, that kind of mindset. It's like it takes those concepts and turns them up to... I don't even want to say 11, like it turns them up to 100, and it really kind of emphasizes some of the stupidity and some of the issues with certain kind of institutions, and like it levies legitimate criticism by showing the kind of over the top ridiculousness of something like Hope's Peak. And I think that's very Danganronpa, because Danganronpa likes to be over the top and ridiculous. But a lot of times there are real themes that permeate through, especially in Danganronpa 2. Like I said, Danganronpa 1, a little less so, but Danganronpa 2 especially. I gotta say, though, when you girls are in a room together, you sure are noisy, aren't you? I could barely hear the conversation because of it. So enlighten me, why did Junko Enoshima come visit you? Did she want to involve you in some kind of important errand? As he said that, he took out another pastry. Oh, a German bear claw. As he began munching on it, his eyes lit up as though he were savoring a rare delicacy. I mean, a bear claw slaps, especially if it's got, like, something like blackberry in it would be, like, slaps. Like, yeah. Not that I really eat that type of stuff much at all, honestly, but still. Well, that's... My eyes dropped down to my notebook, skimming as I answered him. It seems she came to give me some kind of a hint? A hint? I continued flipping through the notebook. Junko Enoshima's purpose? Kamishiro looked surprised at my words. Tell me in more detail, what did Junko Enoshima say her purpose was? He asked more forceful than before. Yeah, because this is the part where he actually goes into, you know, spy mode, like actual, like, trying to gather intel and, like, realizing the severity of the situation. I read the written memories aloud, feeling strangely tense. Seems like Junko Enoshima has two purposes. The first is to crush Izuru Kamakura until nothing is left. Do you know what that means? I mean, we know what that means, and we know she succeeds. Weirdly, she succeeds, but, like, in the long, long run, I would say one could argue that maybe she doesn't succeed, but certainly in the short and medium term, she succeeds. Horribly so. Keep going, he coldly prompted without answering me. I looked back down to the words in the notebook. The second is... I read a few words further and was intensely shocked by what was written there. Now she's going to be reminded again that that Junko said one of her goals was to kill Matsuda. It was as if someone had decimated me by pounding my spine with a sledgehammer. A sudden, intense shock surged through my entire body. Big sis? What the hell? It says, kill your beloved darling, Yasuke Matsuda. As soon as I said the words out loud, my brain felt like it was going through nuclear meltdown. The world around me began to rock violently, though it felt like an earthquake. I myself must have been the one that was shaking. My head felt hot, intensely so, and yet my body was ice cold. The less familiar, often forgotten feelings of fear and anger hit me all at once. I was shaking violently for reasons I couldn't understand. Calm down, sis. The inside of my head had grown numb with fear, but I could hear a voice echoing quietly. I slowly faded back to my senses to find Kamishiro saying something to me. The kill thing has to be a bluff. There's no way a person can commit a murder so lightly. See... Generally speaking, I would agree. But I also think the misconception here is that Junko Enoshima is a person, right? And this is kind of where it's interesting, right? Because Junko... While in many ways, I guess one could argue that, yes, she is nothing but a person, given, like, you look at her demise and all that, but she is kind of one of those transcendent characters where she is so far beyond what we know as normal that she becomes something else entirely. There's so many things she lacks and so many things she has that other people, you know, just is the opposite of what a normal person is, right? And I think, like, Junko and the people that she's able to manipulate to the highest order becomes something different, right? And, like, Junko is probably a step above the others, but, like, you even look at something like Mukuro. And while I think the Mukuro is still... There's still a lot there with Mukuro as far as us learning more about her, but it's clear that regardless, Mukuro was the ultimate soldier, so obviously Mukuro didn't have the similar, a normal person's kind of interpretation of death, given her own personal experiences, and obviously probably both before and after her time spent with Fenrir, she was able to, you know, she was influenced by her sister, and because of that, you know, that probably in some ways was part of the reason she eventually became the ultimate soldier, although seemingly to Junko's dismay. And also, you know, like her entire life, she was influenced in different ways by Junko, seemingly. And that kind of made her something other than human as well. But Junko is obviously the queen when it comes to being something beyond human or beneath human, or however you want to frame it. Besides, if she really planned to kill him, there'd be no point in declaring it to you until after she'd already murdered him. Am I right? That's true. I know that, but I can't stop my body from shaking at all. You're right. There's no way she'd kill him. My voice shook so heavily that I could barely form a single word. In the meantime, it might be better for you to just not say anything, at least until you've calmed down. He replied lazily, gulping down the pastry in his hand. From now on, you should just listen to my reasoning instead. Okay, let's get a move on then. See, that is like really like... It's really interesting because the deal here is that it's like a weird, like, I wouldn't even necessarily call it subtle, but it's just, it shows, like, again, Kamishiro, we have to remember, ultimate spy, so, like, obviously he's, like, a pervert, and there is, like, some, like, kind of not, like, you know, shots at, like, James Bond and stuff here with Kamishiro, but he hits us with the classic, like, oh, you should just listen to what I say instead, you know, instead of, you know, and I know he hits, I know he hits her with the at least until you've calmed down, but he literally says, shut up and listen to what I say, but in, like, a nice way. And so you can kind of see that, like, manipulative tactics here, because, again, he is a spy, and obviously, you know, spy, you know, espionage-related work is going to involve manipulation in some form or fashion, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. So it is just interesting to kind of, one, that's, like, in character with what his talent is, but also shows that, like, a character like this is always going to have questionable morality given the life that they live. The sudden enthusiastic announcement brought a shift in tone, and as he straightened his posture, Kamishiro loudly began explaining his logic. First, there's a supposed advanced notice of Yasuke Matsuda's death that you're so worried about. Most likely that's a bluff. I mean, there's no sense in telling others about a murder you have yet to commit. She may have been using it as a threat, but that's also unlikely. It's definitely a bluff. For now, that's our understanding of it, but we should be more wary of the girl's first purpose. Junko Noshima's first purpose, that's certainly... No, even so, crushing Izuru Kamakura until nothing is left is... Honestly, even I was a little surprised. It's too much of a coincidence. I didn't think I'd hear Kamakura's name. Who's that? Did you just ask who that was? Kamishiro patted his chest with his hand. They're the culprit. He leaned forward and over the table, speaking in an excited tone. I was surprised to hear this name pop up here because Izuru Kamakura is the culprit behind the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. And you're being very, right on there. The culprit behind the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. Speaking of which, what's the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy? Oh, this poor girl. It is so funny how she just keeps forgetting everything, though. It is, like, it's really weird in the context of a story where you have a protagonist. Like, it is a really interesting thing where it's like she, you know, this, like, short-term memory that she's dealing with here. I tilted my head to the side. Wait. I could tell that you don't remember. Kamishiro huffed and pouted. It's always the same when I reveal my deductions to other girls, but from now on, I should expect your reaction when I tell you things. Looking truly bored, the boy exhaled deeply and continued. When I told you the other day, you didn't remember then either, and you didn't even bother to ask me whether the tragedy of Hope's Peak even really happened or not, did you? By now I can say it with all with more confidence. Kamishiro snapped his fingers right in front of my eyes. The tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. Izuru Kamakura is the culprit behind the incident. He beamed with pride as he announced it. After a moment, his voice fell a bit as he spoke again. That still wasn't the reaction I hoped for. He muttered another excuse or two as I tried to piece together what he was talking about. The reason as to why I believe this is the case is also why I called this meeting. Hamashiro leaned over to my ear and whispered in a small voice. Actually, I overheard a conversation between faculty members. Overheard. Somehow that word filled me with a sense of dread. The staff having the conversation were on school grounds, but they seemed very cautious. They didn't mind spilling out all their complaints when in their own private rooms, though. Other than love affairs, it was the most clandestine operation I could possibly imagine. Seriously, those people involved in office romances are scary. You don't mean... Oh, it's been a while since you last talked. Yeah? Was it a while? No, I didn't need to worry about that. More importantly, as expected, I'd say the wiretap I installed in the female teacher's lounge has been at least somewhat useful thus far. We should call this operation the elite female staff are faced with a dilemma. I see. How nice. My reaction, understandably, seemed fairly idiotic. In any case, the pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together. The tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy, Izuru Kamakura, and Junko Enoshima. Once we find out what the connection between them is, we'll be able to solve this case. So then, it'll only take a little longer? Yeah, just a little. Hamashiro's expression became shrouded in thought. Another way to put it is that we just need to take one more step. Here's my prediction. Once we connect one more piece, all the secrets will be revealed. If that happens, we'll understand soon afterward. Yeah, there is in fact one more piece to put together that will just kind of unravel this entire case. Let's see if you could figure it out, Kamishiro. So, are you gonna talk to this Izuru Kamakura person? They're the culprit, aren't they? Kamishiro made a troubled face, tilting his head to the side at the question. I don't think I can. After all, no one knows where they are. No one knows? So they're missing. I wouldn't call it missing per se. Kamashiro's expression only became more and more concerned, his tone of voice growing more serious to match. The individual named Izuru Kamakura isn't a member of the regular school, the reserve course, or the teaching staff. Well, that's actually not true. In fact, I can't find any mention of that person's name anywhere in Hope's Peak Academy. No boys, no girls, no students that are presently attending or graduated. Huh? No mentions anywhere. It's like they're a ghost. I think the most likely possibility is someone wiped the record clean. Nasty business, honestly. I believe it would have been someone involved with the school, but not someone in the inner circle. It would be too risky for them. So then, there's an accomplice within the school? It's strange, though. For as long as I've been investigating it, I haven't found a single student who actually knows who this Izuru Kamakura is. The school began hiding them after the incident, so it wouldn't be strange if there were students who knew about them before it happened. But I never thought there'd be no sign of their existence from the very beginning, because no one knows them as Izuru Kamakura. And maybe he could figure that out. No way, they really are a ghost. Stop that. They're not anything like a ghost. Kamishiro puffed out his cheeks, seeming displeased with the turn the conversation had taken. Anyway, he cleared his throat slightly and adjusted his expression to a more serious one as he spoke. No matter what the reason is, if we don't find out who Izuru Kamakura is, we may have no choice but to give up. Give up? I exclaimed, my voice rising sharply in volume. In response, Kamishiro shook his finger in front of my face. Touching me again? It's no good to jump to conclusions. As I was saying, we may have no choice but to give up coming at it from that perspective. We can't figure it out from that one. It'll be better to come at it from a different perspective. It's stupid to always look at things from one point of view. For example, if you only ever look at an underclassman's boobs, you'll never see her ass. What the fuck, dude? I mean, I guess he's not wrong, but I see, thanks goodness. The reaction might have been a bit silly, but I chose to ignore his comparison and replied overly cheerfully. So, what's the other perspective? Junko and Oshima, of course. Junko and Oshima. We always return to that girl's name. I felt the shivers run down my spine. Yes, we do seem to always return to that girl's name, both in this franchise, but more specifically in this story. So, yeah, I wonder why. Thanks to the conversation I overheard from the female staff, I finally understand in what way Junko and Oshima is connected to the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. Kamishiro shot a quick glance to me, checking my exceptionally weak reaction before letting out a large sigh. It looks like you don't remember, but other than being the person who started the rumor of it all, it's a mystery as to what other connection she has to the tragedy. But it's a mystery I've finally cracked. It seems that she's the girl who discovered the massacre. Discovered it, but isn't that suspicious? Since this is our little mystery novel, she's definitely a suspect, said Kamishiro, nodding, but you know that, don't you? She's already been interrogated by the school. Interrogated? We've been over this. If you don't remember, check your notebook. As Kamishiro suddenly yelled like a child throwing a temper tantrum, I quickly read through the notebook. Ah, I see. Junko and Oshima started to spread rumors immediately following the incident and was investigated and questioned. But if she was released just after that, then that means she can't be the culprit. Thanks to your need to reread everything. Also, see, this is where it gets interesting, right? There's the other element to this, and it's like, you have to remember the events of Danganronpa 1, and, you know, I don't think they could get away with it in this context, because I think it would be a little harder to pull off, but we can also rule out the possibility of Mukuro playing Junko for some of this as well. And that could also possibly explain some of the potential inconsistencies here. There's a lot of interesting things here that could be at play. Thanks to your need to reread everything, I've come to a conclusion, Big Sis. Well, it's just as you put it. I thought that since the interrogation was so relentless, it would have been impossible for her to escape. Kamishiro suddenly stopped moving. What's wrong? You just figure it out? I see. That's it. Oh boy. The boy's eyes widened as the corners of his mouth shook and trembled. Why do I feel like we're gonna get a moment where Matsuda kills Kamishiro? I don't know if he'd be able to pull that off, Ultimate Spy and all, but like, I don't know, I understand now, he shrieked excitedly. We completely overlooked the most important part of it all. It really was best to ask you to help me out, Big Sis. You did great with the whole interactive mystery part. Wow. With uncontrollable excitement, he took another sweet bread out of the paper bag, a jam bun this time, and as he bit into it, he started to craft a new sentence. What I'm saying is, Junko Inoshima was interrogated by the school. That's where the last piece was hidden. Interrogated by Matsuda, right? What do you mean? Well, you see, the information I heard while eavesdropping, the interrogation on Junko Enoshima was beyond thorough. They started with the cliche things like polygraph testing and kinesic? I'm assuming it's kinetic, but maybe it's kinesic, analysis. Then they moved on to something called brain fingerprinting, which is a more advanced method of lie detection. And the thing about brain fingerprinting is that it's said to be more reliable than your basic polygraph test. The point being, they were using tests that measured brainwaves directly to see if she was lying, understand? Yep. We would have needed a neurologist for that. Not really, but it sounds incredible. That's right, it is incredible. The corners of Kamishiro's mouth twitched up into a smile. Not only that, but none of it would have been possible without an expert. An expert? It seems that the school required the assistance of a certain student for the interrogation. Of course, I couldn't find who the student was, but I just realized. It would be difficult to try something as complex as brain fingerprinting without an expert in the field. They'd have needed to collaborate with someone deeply talented so they wouldn't have to wing it. My point is, there's someone at this school who is familiar with the intricacies of the brain. At that exact moment, an awful thought came wandering into my mind. I didn't want it to come true, so I quickly tried to think of anything else in order to distract me. It has nothing to... You know him, big sis. He's the ultimate neurologist, Yasuke Matsuda. I heard something within my ear that sounded like a fuse shorting out. My brain was going blank. With the death notice from earlier, it seems certain there was some connection between Junko Enoshima and Yasuke Matsuda. Perhaps Matsuda knew Enoshima's weakness? I suppose, yes. But you don't have a clue though, Kamishiro. Either way, there must be a further reason behind their connection, right? The school released Enoshima from the interrogation way too easily. He continued to talk on, his eyes shining brightly. I found myself simply nodding in agreement to everything he said. After he had spoken for what felt like forever and a day, I couldn't help but feel as though I had no energy left in my body. Even so, Kamishiro continued to talk. In contrast to his upbeat, excited demeanor, I must have looked depressed at best. The point being, I can't help but feel as though Yasuke Matsuda may have been the hidden last piece, you know? I mean, do you really think Junko Enoshima was only aiming at the good relationship between Matsuda and yourself out of obsession? Hey, if it really is what I've concluded, then don't you think that's the connection? I'm not really thinking anything. I don't know anything. I don't even know how the conversation turned to Matsuda in the first place. I don't know. I don't know about these overwhelming reasons and connections. It's impossible that everything has a reason behind it. There was no need to write any of this in my notebook because my self-defense is working. Damn, that's so dark. If something came and threatened my world, I would be happier forgetting about it. Because if I forget about it, that means I have nothing to do with it, and that protects my world. So I'll look away from life's disruptions, I'll turn from its misfortunes, and I'll chase after my world with all the strength I hold within. I'll cast away my feelings of self-hatred and guilt, because I'll always forget whether or not I face the truth. And so, the things I forget, they simply have nothing to do with me. That is my self-defense. Yeah, I really do feel like we'll solve this soon. I suddenly realized Kamishiro was still talking to himself, drawing nonsense shapes on top of the table with the tip of his fingers. Say, big sis, it seems like the end of your troubles is coming soon too. I suppose so. After I solve it, it'll be time for you to get ready to reward me. So polish up that fine-ass body. I like to imagine that despite your cute face, at night you're as intense as they come, aren't you? I bet you are, right? I mean, I guess he's not wrong. Jesus Christ. Yeah? I guess. Fucking hell. After he finished his one-sided conversation, he got up from his chair, though it really seemed more as though he had to jump out of it. Alright, we're on the home stretch. Yeah, you're not living that much longer. Someone's gonna kill you, bro. After yelling an encouraging cry, he turned back to face me. I'm sure next time we meet, I'll have solved this case. With a wave of his hand, Kamishiro left the table. However, after only walking a few steps, he stopped. Oh, right. He looked back, having suddenly remembered something. If you don't want to be sitting around doing nothing, you could try looking into Yasuke Matsuda's little death threat problem. It doesn't really matter how much you look into it. He won't be killed or anything. I just thought it'd be good to mention it, just in case. Still, I don't know what sort of secret connection Yasuke Matsuda and Junko Enoshima have, so it's better to be careful. Yeah. Secret connection. I think we all know what that secret connection is. At least I think I do. Secret connection? Enoshima and Matsuda have a secret connection? What the heck? 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 A wave of anxiety washed over me. My chest tightened in pain, and everything felt terrifying. My entire being was just exhausted. Anyway, it's about time we reach the climax. You should get ready, big sis. Anything could happen. And I'm sure anything will happen as we are 62% through the story now, apparently. There's a long chapter, too. Kamishiro finished his warning and turned away, this time disappearing into the cafeteria's crowd like a ghost. And just like that, I was left alone, still exhausted in the school cafeteria. For the moment I sat there, concentrating on slow, deep breaths. There was no real reason for it, I was simply passing time. Time until the mystery was solved. Time which always continued in a steady but relentless stream. Time that, for me, felt best spent simply taking deep breaths. And I forgot everything. Perfectly. Soon enough. Couldn't remember why I was taking in such deep breaths to begin with. How strange. Is that going to be the end of the chapter? No, it's not. Okay. Well, whatever. There was no more that I could forget. From that point on, I was bright, cheerful, and brimming with positivity. Without so much as a backward glance, I would walk into the future full of hope. I picked up my notebook from the table, and with plenty of momentum, I stood up from my chair and... I felt lightheaded. Or no, maybe it was something a little different? In an attempt to steady myself, I grabbed the table with my hand. I looked down to the notebook in my hands. The words within danced around the page, distorting themselves. At that moment, I shivered, feeling like a horde of insects was crawling up my back. My knees buckled. I tried to process what was happening. And then found I was sitting on the chair again. The inside of my head was stained metallic gray. My mind completely blank. I'm so tired. Is this like a... There's no way this is happening in the middle of a fucking, like, packed fucking cafeteria. But, like, this feels almost like a switch between the two. And, like, we're getting to actually see it for the first time, because it's obviously happened a bunch, but, like, in this case, it's, like, we're actually getting to see it, because she forgets about it, so we don't... You get what I'm getting at. My eyelids became heavy, and my face slackened. The world circling me was quickly beginning to fade. The busy noise of the students around me was vanishing, and their human shapes all began melting together. It was as if I had been poisoned or hypnotized. I couldn't move a single finger. It was in that complete stillness that I suddenly heard a voice. Hoo-hoo-hoo! What an ominous laugh. It was strange, yet sounded so familiar. Maybe now, end of the chapter? No, we just keep going. Okay, it looks like okay, we are at, this is the last page, though. What's this? Did you actually remember little old me? I'm so happy! Despite your awful habit of forgetting things, you still remembered me. That's right, it's yours truly, the ultimate despair. It's been a while. Why can I remember? Why did I remember them? Either way, I actually remembered someone. Before, this voice had told me something. Let's meet up again sometime. Then I can kill you properly. Suddenly, I was looking upward, and standing before my eyes was an enormous shadow. The shadow's face was familiar, but I couldn't recall any memory of it. That familiar face stared intensely at me, like it was trying to look through me entirely. Their irises were colored by darkness itself. It was like their eyes were despairing, or even made of despair itself. Yeah, we've seen that. We've seen that with Junko, and then we've seen kind of a variation of that with Nagito, where it's the fusion of hope and despair, right? As I looked into them, an unexpected thought popped into my head. Oh. So I'll be killed by these eyes. Unfortunately, I can't actually kill you this time either. They whispered to me as though they were answering my thoughts. Once again, it's just not the right circumstances. You still haven't tasted enough despair. You see, you need to taste an even more despair-inducing despair. Suddenly, all the light surrounding me disappeared and I felt my eyelids shut. The shadow seemed to cover my face completely. But if you say you don't want to taste that despair, then it means war. If you don't fight despair, you'll never feel hope again. Those were the last words I heard. After that, voices, sounds, everything had disappeared. As numbness took hold of my body, all my senses stopped working. I was completely still, and then I fell. Ever so silently, I fell out of consciousness. Wild! Oh my god, the ending to that chapter was wild. Yeah, Kamashiro's getting close, too. He hasn't come to the huge revelation. I don't think he will until it's too late, if he even gets to the point where he does, but that was really good. Really enjoyed how Kamishiro was really able to kind of piece a lot of this together, and you know, obviously, again, Ryuko is an unwilling participant in her own story, and I think that's just really interesting. Like, this is Ryuko Tanashi's story, and she doesn't want to be a part of it. And for the main character to be the character that's kind of the unwilling participant in the story is really interesting, and something that I think Danganronpa 0 does in a very cool way and uses it to its advantage in like really interesting ways and dynamics and stuff, and like it plays into it really well. It is just such a strange like premise, like starting point for a story when you have a protagonist who in every sense of the words really does not want to be here, and is really, like, obviously there's plenty of stories where a character is kind of involuntarily thrown into something, you know, beyond them, but like I feel like, and that is what's going on with Ryuko, but this is obviously like such a special version of that, given the unique context that we have about who she presumably is, but also just the context of her situation in general. Even if I'm wrong about who she is, she definitely has these unique circumstances that are just really interesting, and it's really cool. Like, that was just a really cool chapter. I really enjoyed that, and I'm excited to see what comes next. Maybe we flip back to Matsuda. Could even get some more Kyoko action. Who knows? Like, let's see what comes next. So, Chapter 6. Quickly, he made his way to the girl's room, discovering upon his arrival that she had not bothered to take the key from her door upon leaving. Despite this, there was no one inside the room. He swiftly opened the door the rest of the way, letting a rush of air inside that caused a poster on the wall to flap noisily. So it looks like this is Matsuda here. Damn it, why'd she have to be out now? He had told her to stay put, even when she had nothing to do. If she were in front of him right now, he would be shouting obscenities at her. That being said, he fully realized that doing so would be useless. There was no sense in yelling at her. No matter what he said, the girl would just forget everything. Letting out a large sigh, Yasuke Matsuda dropped his line of sight to his hands, which remained scrunched into tight fists. No matter how many times he tried to relax them, it was impossible. He had lost feeling in them long before, still able to feel Murasame's neck squeezed between them. Jesus. Soshu and Murasame's sore red eyes flashed through his mind suddenly. He squeezed his fists even tighter. It was as though his hands were still wrapped around the boy's neck, suffocating him of air. Why did she have to be out now? He whispered in a much weaker tone than before as he left the room. Matsuda exited the dormitory, soon finding himself headed towards the biology building in the East District. If he were her, then that's where he would be. There was no other place that a girl who had forgotten everything would go. Though it wasn't even the height of summer yet, the back of Matsuda's dirty shirt was already drenched in sweat. Perspiration weighed him down, making him feel as heavy as lead. Should have taken around 10 minutes to reach the biology building on a normal day, but this time it took at least twice as long. Despite it all, Matsuda somehow made it to the biology building. Looking like a broken wind-up toy, he scaled the stairs in a strange, awkward waddle, and within a few minutes was standing in front of the Neuroscience Institute. After taking a deep breath, he threw open the door. With hope, he looked into the room, but there was no one there. It was still too early to be discouraged by this, but an uncomfortable feeling stirred in him nonetheless. What happened here? It had not been hidden well. The room had been trashed. The desk, the bed, the entirety of the laboratory. Don't tell me. His expression changed as he quickly hurried over to the bed. Something beneath it moved as if it had anticipated his actions. Who's there? As he instinctively raised his voice, he reached down and raised the bedsheet that draped over the sides. Under the bed was a girl. Matsuda felt his stab of anxiety ease with some relief, but in the next moment that relief was blown away as if by an explosion. The bed flung into... Okay, is this Junko? Are we getting Junko and Matsuda? The bed flung into the air, drifting like it were much lighter than expected before it began to spin around in a dizzying motion. After it spun for what seemed like an inconceivable amount of time, it finally fell to the ground, as though gravity had at last remembered it existed. The bedsheet, still in Matsuda's hand, flipped upward and lightly grazed against his nose before floating back down to the ground. A deep rumbling crash echoed through the room. After it had come to a stop, Matsuda heard a voice, or more specifically, Matsuda heard a laugh. Ah! Yeah, I'm not doing that. Ha 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 ha. This has got to be Junko, right? On the other side of the bed stood the girl from before. Wow. Talk about good reflexes. Yeah, this has got to be. This is... You could already tell it's so confident. I wasn't expecting you to be here. I thought it was another stupid girl. You know, the one from earlier had this dumbass grin plastered to her face. Most of the guys I've seen up to now in this dump seem to smile like they're a little crazy. But at least they were kind of cute, you know? You? Excuse me. Wait, what? Okay. The girl that stood before him was simply trying to give him instructions, even if it was in her own strange way, she began narrating. And yet the boy known as Matsuda ignored her, instead asking questions of his own. All he wanted was to hear about the beauty before him. He wanted to know about her so much it was unbearable. He found her enthralling, fascinating, alluring, eyeing her body over again, lapping it all up like a starved wolf. It wouldn't be surprising to either one of them right now if the mere sight of her was making him hard. I love her. I fucking love her. Holy shit. Oh my god. And also, she's just meta narrating the story because, oh, for fuck's sake, there's a reason why we stand Junko here, and you all know it. Fucking hell. For fuck's sake. Matsuda suddenly kicked the bed beside him, a metallic clanging reverberating through the lab. Oh my. Oh my. Are you mad? Are you mad, bro? Like, what the fuck? The girl's smile grew large and obscene as her voice became cheerful. But I'm the one who should be upset. Hey, why aren't you looking at the impeccably gorgeous face of one Miss Junko Enoshima like a lust-driven demon? Why's that? Hey, why aren't you raring to go right now? Damn it. Damn it. Wow. What the fuck? What the fuck? Girl's literally like salty because Matsuda didn't get rock hard at the sight of her, which, I mean, to be fair, like, and I think everyone here can agree that, like, if Junko's in front of you, I mean, there's something wrong with your body if your body doesn't have some kind of reaction, and you know, there's no there's no gender or sexuality based excuses for this. Like, it is a universal natural reaction. As she spoke, Matsuda remembered something about the girl. I knew it. You're absolutely crazy at heart. Am I? I mean, I didn't think this one was too weird. But it is your real personality, isn't it? Interesting. Is this implying that there's more than just Junko and Ryuko in there? The way she said, I didn't think this one was too weird. Almost implying, like, in her mind, there's weirder personalities. Huh. Interesting. I wouldn't be surprised, because we already have a character with two personalities in this universe, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is... If this dissociative identity goes beyond just Junko and Ryuko and there's more than two. But this does... It is interesting, though. I do love how it's written, because there is just enough here that does make you... Like they're heavily implying it, but they're not giving you anything concrete here. Like, there's nothing about this interaction from Junko or Matsuda that's, like, giving away for sure that Junko and Ryuko are the same person. So it's, like... heavily implied, but it's getting to the point to where the plot twist could be that Junko and Ryuko actually are different people, right? And that would be just insane if that was like the meta thing here. Hey now, quit it with those comments about my personality. Enoshima quickly switched to an offended tone. For real, you're making it sound like I've just been faking it up to now, but... I've been making sure I keep at least one aspect of me the same. That way you know it's me for sure, no matter what you're getting. Still, I just get bored so easily, so I pretty much hit the snooze button as soon as you get something sloppy. The fuck does that mean? Even still, that... What are you planning? Matsuda interrupted. His expression changed to a firm glare. Oh, getting serious, are we? You don't want to waste your time talking to the ever-famous Queen of Chatter? It's more like we're in a Saiyan battle, is that right? Okay, random DBZ reference. Sounds about right for, or Dragon Ball reference. Sounds about right for Junko. Queen of Chatter might even be a reference, too, that I just don't get. Just answer me! Frustrated, Matsuda raised his voice in anger. Just what is it you're trying to do here? What are you aiming to accomplish? Enoshima tilted her head slightly to the side. Nothing really. I don't want to do anything. What? It's too late. I shan't do a thing. Not one single itty-bitty thing. I have everyone else doing it for me. The student council, the headmaster, the steering committee. Oh, and also that girl who you absolutely adore. Everyone is running around doing my work. Hearing this, Matsuda's face went dark red. You already know what I'm doing? Whatever are you saying? Enoshima raised her head at Matsuda as Matsuda looked down at her. I've known what you were doing for a very long time now. You've been doing exactly as I intended you to do. So what are you saying? Come on. Won't you tell me? Matsuda clenched his jaw at her words. The mere sight of it caused Enoshima to quiver with an ecstatic look stuck to her face. Oh god, I love this woman. Oh yes. The expression you're giving me right now is amazing. That despair-induced face you're showing me. I want to see more of it. Be filled with more and more and more and more despair. Fuck off. Matsuda's face contorted with rage. Watching him, Enoshima snorted and chuckled. She placed her hands behind her back as she casually inspected her surroundings. Moving on, though, Matsuda, what is it you plan to do from here? What do you mean? Enoshima suddenly reached out and grabbed Matsuda's wrist. Oh dear, your hand is wounded. You weren't scratched too hard, were you? It looks painful. Should I kiss it better? Oh my god. Oh my god, I love this girl. Matsuda quickly tried to pull his hand back, but Enoshima held on tightly. Now let's see. These scratches were caused by some other boy, weren't they? Looks like he was probably an honor student, but he was terribly ill, and when he made this wound, he was probably bedridden with shock, wasn't he? How do you know that? I don't know. I just understand. Because it was all part of my plan. Enoshima drew close to Matsuda's pale face and grinned lazily. Gotcha! Just kidding! She released Matsuda's hand and once again observed her surroundings. Still, I'm sure there's some precious existence you want to protect. Oh, that's right. This is disturbingly similar to that thing with your mother. Excuse me? You must feel... yeah, I mean, I know the memory thing, but you must feel awful. I'm sorry. Oh, speaking of your mother, I can't help but feel that Ryoko Otanashi looks just like her. You know, they just have the same kind of vibe and stuff. What the fuck? Dude, this is Junko, so she's gonna call him out for this Oedipus shit. Bro, I guarantee you she's gonna call him out for some Oedipus bullshit, and I love it. You know, they just have the same kind of vibe and stuff. I wonder if they shared some sort of connection to each other or something. Or maybe you're the connection? I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I guess it's pretty nice that your friend is so forgetful, just like your mother. I gotta say, Oedipus, you're really knocking it out of the park! This version of Mother Dearest doesn't even remember her own miserable backstory! Fucking hell! God damn it, she literally called him Oedipus. Holy shit. Man, I need to screenshot that. There's a friend that'll get a kick out of that. Holy fuck, that's great. As she turned to Matsuda once more, she looked up at him with a persistent and energetic grin. She bounced happily around him over and over. That's why you wanted to protect her this time. I get it. You feel sorry for her. You're troubled, Matsuda. You're so very troubled. That's what it seems like after all I've been hearing. Holy shit. Her, like, ability, oh my god. Her, like, charisma and speaking ability and just her ability to manipulate is, like, on another level. Like, she is one of the most horrifying characters I've ever seen in fiction. Like, it is unbelievable. And, like, the more, like what's cool about DR0, one of the things I've loved about it is Junko scenes. Like, I just need more Junko scenes just in my life. So... Enoshima stood in front of him, glaring more intently now. For real, though. What do you plan to do from here? Matsuda opened his mouth, attempting to find the words to say, only to close it again. His pale lips trembled slightly, but he could only muster a glare directed back at her. Enoshima looked like she had expected this reaction and began her pacing once more. Oh dear. I suppose it can't be helped. I'll just have to think about this one a little harder. Suddenly, she stopped walking. Don't get me wrong or anything, she yelled out as she went bright red with what seemed like embarrassment. I don't really mind if you don't care about it. Still, it's all up to me. Even though I'm not the most reliable, and I can't just leave it be. He didn't understand the reason behind her at all. Enoshima changed her personality with no warning, as if she were trying on clothes. That's actually a really interesting thought, given that she's the ultimate fashionista as well, leaving Matsuda unable to follow along with the conversation. She paid no mind to his reactions and continued to walk once more as if nothing had happened. Well, I did say I'd have to think about it for a bit, but really there's only one way to go about all this. Enoshima circled around Matsuda as his eyes followed her. She continued with a straightforward tone. It's Izuru Kamakura. No matter what happens, he'll end up with the blame. He ran away, and that's perfectly fine, since he's the cause of the little incident they call the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. With that, it should be easy to fix the issue with the student council president, and the whole thing with the guys from the steering committee. Those old fogies are just trying to cover it up again anyway. Hearing her words, Matsuda muttered inside his head. I knew it. Still, if Murasame said what he thought was true, then that means it all just makes less and less sense. Just tell me. What are you trying to achieve? Matsuda asked. You know what? I told you before, didn't I, silly? I'm not trying to do anything, she screamed in a high-pitched voice, then suddenly laughing it off. I'm just making my exit from this interesting little tea party. I've had enough of interrupting things. Right now, I'm just existing as a background character, nothing else. Yes and no. Like, I think Junko has done everything she needs to do. You know, I think there'll be the true moment of Otonashi's despair is where, like, she'll pop back in. But, like, yeah, she's just kind of here, like, when you need her to pop up, I guess. He didn't know if her words were truly her honest feelings on the matter. No matter how many times she repeated it herself, he would probably never know. He understood that, at least. Well, in the end, it's all up to you. I don't really care what you do with this whole situation. Yeah, do whatever you like. I'll accept whatever ending we come to. Enoshima stopped walking. She stood in front of Matsuda and turned to him before posing another question. So, what will you do? It's all dependent on whether you go along with it or not, right? Yep. Holy shit, man. Interesting. That is true, though. Like, this all does kind of bank on Matsuda. Like, that's the thing. And she just says, yeah, sure. Because, like, that's the thing. Matsuda is doomed to despair no matter what direction he takes. And, like, obviously, she kind of has her, like, quote-unquote victory. But if she... Like, this is the weird thing about Junko, is she always wants to... She plans everything perfectly, but she always wants to have that avenue for getting defeated, because she wants there to be, like, she plans everything out perfectly because I'm an analyst. But she also wants there to be some, like, miracle. There's the possibility of a miracle. And the reason that she wants the possibility of the miracle is because she fetishizes despair so hardcore that she wants to bring despair to everyone, right? But she also wants to bring despair to herself. And while she can find despair in succeeding, she can find even more despair in failing. So it's like this weird, like, that's the thing. She's such a walking contradiction. Like, the only person that can truly beat Junko is Junko. But it's, like, in the most weird way possible. Like, everything about Junko is just she's so interesting. And that's just why she's one of my favorite characters. Like, just generally, like, ever. Definitely my favorite character in Danganronpa. Although Nagito, like I said, Nagito is a GOAT. Like, he gave it a good college try for sure. And, you know, presumably, depending on again, I wouldn't be surprised if it depends on when in the timeline the another episode and Danganronpa 3 take place in. I imagine Danganronpa 3 is after 2, but I have some theories about potentially that not being the case. I don't know. But the point is, there's always a chance that we could run into him again. And to be fair, there's always a chance we could run into Junko again because, I mean, just look at Danganronpa 2, right? Anyways. Although Matsuda had understood what she was saying just now, he felt he had to ask something. You know where this Kamakura guy's whereabouts are? Nope, not a clue. Enoshima quickly shook her head, causing Matsuda to frown. But you said Kamakura would get the blame and nothing. Just relax. It'll all be clear soon enough, she interrupted him loudly. There are some guys who know where Kamakura is, and I happen to know just who they are and what they're doing. Soon I'll be one of the people in the know too. The steering committee? Ding, 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 correct. Correct! Enoshima announced with a cocky attitude. If you heard it from those guys, then Kamakura should be easy to find. But even if they knew, that doesn't mean I know where he is, right? Enoshima's brashness remained, but her voice deepened. That's right. It doesn't mean that. At that moment, her expression slipped and her face went deadpan, as though she had lost interest in absolutely everything. But perhaps that's not such a big deal. I mean, if those guys don't say, then that just means Kamakura's whereabouts remain unknown. Your plan will fail, and I'll be ruined. But that's all, so you shouldn't pay too much mind to it. As she muttered in a monotone... See, this goes to what I was just talking about, though. Like, if she fails, who the fuck cares? Because that's the thing. Like, this is the meaningless... She finds a meaninglessness in existence, right? So, like, if she fails, that's despair-inducing. If she succeeds, that's despair-inducing. Like, it just... That's what's wild about Junko. Like, she legitimately, like... She's just not, like, she is something beyond human. And that's different from all the other despairs. Because, I mean, every other despair, I think it's more rooted on a desire. Like, even someone like Nagito, who is kind of like the Junko, in a lot of ways, the antithesis of Junko, but also, like, Nagito is the closest thing, but I think the difference is that Nagito truly believes in his concept of hope. I feel like with Junko, it's more just, it's all rooted in a lack of, you know, like a meaninglessness of existence, right? And that's where she finds joy in despair. Because I think, like, hope, because it's a positive concept, you can devote yourself fully to it. Whereas despair, it's one of those things where I think what it's meant to represent in this universe is a little different, right? And I think that's just kind of how I perceive, like, Nagito's character versus Junko's characters. While obviously they are in many ways opposite, I don't think they're one-to-one opposite. I think Junko is a slightly more depressing character, even though I think both of them are... very sad characters, and one of the reasons why I love both of them, obviously, as my two favorite characters in the series, probably. Even though there's plenty of others that I love just because they're fun or they're cool as shit. Like, you guys know I love me some Ibuki, for example, but, you know, Junko and Nagito are just so intriguing and interesting to discuss. But I think Junko... There's as interesting as Nagito is from his perspective, I feel like Junko is a more unique character, because Nagito is just a really well written, like, fucked up character with a really fucked up worldview, but like Junko kind of goes beyond that into something that just doesn't even feel human, but yet is actually really interesting. It's wild though. But anyways, in the end, it's all despair, right? Just despair. That's all. As she muttered in a monotone voice, Enoshima turned to the window and walked toward it. Her eyes filled with melancholy as she leaned against the sill and stared outside, looking like a character from like a weird light novel or harem anime or maybe a visual novel. The laboratory overlooked the East District's courtyard and the reserve course's parade. You're talking as if it doesn't matter if I fail. Matsuda raised his voice in a puzzled tone, staring at Enoshima's back. Because it doesn't matter. Continuing to stare out the world, the girl laughed. Stare out the window. Well, stare out the world might not be that far off either. The girl laughed absent-mindedly. In private, I'd always think along the lines of how despair-inducingly wonderful it must be to put an end to something as utterly insignificant as small fish. Their plans are nothing, you know? She said even the things that were never meant to be said. Her words were a reflection of true feelings that lay in her heart. So then, you really are crazy. And that's the thing, right? So, and obviously she's doing that while looking at the reserve course, and there's like a double irony here because of Izuru, but also we know what happens to the reserve course because, yeah, we know what happens to the reserve course. I'll just leave it at that. Totes sorry. You don't like that, do you? Enoshima looked back at him with an innocent smile on her face, as if Matsuda were mistaken. She had the face of a devil in 1 minute, and in the next she smiled like an angel. She hadn't intended to make either face. That's why he continued to shake as he talked with the girl. Felt beyond exhausted. That's right. For that girl's sake, it's not like you can lose. Enoshima's pure and innocent smile remained as she turned and walked silently to Matsuda. You really are someone who's madly in love. And you're prepared to fight for your love. I'll bet when they said love is blind, they were thinking of you. But that doesn't mean I think what you're doing is stupid. Actually, I'm grateful. You're destined to spend an eternity with that person. So really, thank you. From the very bottom of my heart. Enoshima walked up to Matsuda and didn't come to a stop until finally their toes were touching. She whispered gently to him. Do your best, Matsuda. I expect that from you. Defeat the despair you face and let hope win, shining victorious. Because that's what I expect will happen. As she whispered quietly, Enoshima leaned in toward him until... Oh my god. Oh my... Bro, no. Enoshima leaned in toward him until their faces nearly touched. And she then leaned in more. In the next moment, their lips connected. It was a vicious... Wait. Sorry, I skipped a line. In the next moment, their lips connected. Matsuda didn't break away. He was confused, but gave up and just accepted it as it was. That is... It's the kiss of death, man. I'm sure this is the kiss she's given to, like, at least half of the fucking despairs. Definitely including her sister. Fucking hell. I mean, hey... You know, it is what it is. It is Junko after all. It was a vicious, long, entwining, violent kiss. After a time that was far too long to be described in a single word, Enoshima finally pulled away. In the moments following the kiss, she backed away from him, and in dead silence, she walked to the laboratory door. Where are you going? Matsuda asked, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. Yeah, he's wrecked now, I bet. I bet he's hard now. Junko always wins in the end, right? Holy shit, I bet he's fucking hard as a diamond right now. Bro, like... In return for the kiss, I thought I'd lend you a bit of a hand, she said, laughing. But then quickly stopped. Wait. You don't need to go out of your way. But his mouth wouldn't move. No. Not just his mouth. His entire body felt numb and was immobile. Bro. Paralysis poison on her lips? Or her... Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And it looks like you were caught by such a classic too, Matsuda. Looking at the frozen boy, Enoshima looked like a child on Christmas. She was smiling, overcoming with delight. You know, yeah, lipstick, yo! Bro, I can't with this woman. You know, lipstick is a dangerous thing. Mine, for example, has a nice little kick of poison. Poison. It just sounds so vintage, totally retro. But don't worry, it's not life-threatening or anything. Enoshima happily bounced around Matsuda's still form, reveling in sheer joy that her plan worked. Finally, she bounced directly in front of Matsuda. Matsuda originally wanted her to bounce directly on top of him, but now it's just like, fuck you, bitch. But I mean, I guess it's always both with Matsuda and Junko, I would imagine. Now then, I should give you one final piece of advice. Her expression suddenly grew serious, like a boxer moments before the bell rings. You know, in this scenario, only you can make the choice, Matsuda. So think carefully. Dwell on it, and choose whichever one you think is best. Hope or despair. The choices are so different, and yet surprisingly, intricately connected. Anyway, have a good think about it. It's no good. I'm tired now. Maybe this conversation was just that tedious. Well, whatever. In any case, that's all for now. Goodbye. That's interesting. So that almost feels like she's like losing control and like it's about to go back to Ryoko if I am. But again, the appearance thing is still a huge question. Like, there are differences in their appearance. Like, they're both like fair skin, very pretty. There's definitely a lot there, but like the hair is the biggest question for me. Interesting. So that's the thing, right? Matsuda's the one that will have to make the choice, and I think what she's saying is hope. That's the thing, right? For Matsuda, what might be hope for the world and despair for the world are kind of flipped for Matsuda, because his hope is everyone else's despair, and his despair is everyone else's hope. And that's kind of part of what she means. And I think it's really interesting because that's the thing. Like, she told him earlier when she whispered before she kissed him, shoved her tongue down her throat or whatever the fuck she was doing while she was poisoning him. She expects him to choose hope. But I think she expects, when she says that, I think she's expecting his hope, right? Because one person's hope could be another person's despair. So that's the thing, right? This is why none of it matters, because in the end, the despair will come in some form or fashion. It's really interesting, honestly, when you think about it. She brought the one-sided conversation she had started to an equally one-sided end, sauntering out of the lab. Wait! Despite yelling it out, no sound escaped Matsuda's mouth. The boy stood paralyzed, waiting for feeling to return to his body. I wonder if that's the end of the chapter. Yeah. Holy shit. That was... Oh my god. Oh my god, bro. Junko calling out bro for an Oedipus complex, shoving her tongue down his throat, poisoning him, making him hard as a rock. Like, in the classic meme. The classic meme. You can't keep getting away with it! You can't keep getting away with it! What a crazy chapter. That was... I mean, it goes without saying that the Junko chapters have been, like, the best chapters of the story just in general. But that one might have taken the cake. Like, that was just unbelievable. That was such a fantastic chapter of Danganronpa 0. And I'm... once again, in this awful position where it's like, oh, this video is like just barely long enough, I feel like, to be a justifiable video. Because to me, like, an hour and a half is kind of like the baseline. Like, that's like the lowest I feel like a recording session can be. But I really do kind of want to stop here. And obviously, if we do this, then the next session's got to kind of make up for it, I think. Because, like, I'm trying to have them be, like, 2 hours, give or take. So it's like, oh, yeah, if I do an hour and a half, then I might do, like, a 2.5 after that. And I think that's what the last 2 sessions were. I think it was an hour and a half, which finished Volume 1. And then I think the video that I think our last one was, like, 2.5. So we might be heading toward trending on a smaller video here, and then maybe we do a larger one, just because I feel like that Junko session was so good, that chapter, and I feel like we might, like, have one more chapter before it, one more session before it completely, like, this series, like, this thing completely loses its goddamn mind. But I'm also debating whether I'm going to continue recording as well, because I think I am going to stop here. It's unfortunate because we only read 2 chapters, but neither of them were short. They were, 2 legitimate chapters. So that's the thing, right? Like, the chapter count isn't necessarily related to how much we read, because sometimes there's chapters that are really short, and sometimes they're much, much longer, so it depends on the context. But this has been a really good story, and it is really exciting that because now we're 65%, so we're 2/3 of the way through it, and I'm just really looking forward to what comes next, because Junko has even said that, she's kind of implied that she might not be around. She doesn't really have a whole lot else to do in the story, and I kind of tend to believe her. Like, I feel like she's done what she's needed to do, and, it is worth noting that, right? Like, Volume 1, the cover is Ryoko, and Volume 2, the cover is Yasuke. So this is kind of his story in a way now, because in the end, he's the one that has all the power here. He's the one who has the information, who can figure out what's going on, and he's the one that can make a choice that will determine, I think, much more than even he realizes. And I think based on what we know about Danganronpa, it's fairly easy to figure out what I think his choice will be. How exactly that translates to the ending of this story, I'm not entirely sure. Because I have been thinking that Matsuda would die at the end of this story, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't. And I'm kind of thinking, like, from a poetic sense, that, like, Ryoko and Matsuda are going to die together, and then, Junko will rise from the ashes of that, so to speak, at least from a metaphorical standpoint, but I don't know exactly how that's gonna work, because that's the thing. Like, Junko did imply that, like, you are meant to be with her forever, and you will be, and, like, all that shit, and that tends to make me wonder if that's, like, a metaphorical thing. They're gonna die together and be together forever, or if Matsuda's actually gonna survive this. Both of those are very interesting to me, and I'm just very curious, like, how this is gonna play out, because if Matsuda does survive this, then I have questions about when he's gonna come up in the story. And that's why I think, just for, like, the loose end situation, I'm expecting Matsuda to die at the end of DR0. If he doesn't, I would be really hyped, but then I would also be disappointed if we never see him again. So I feel like that's the thing. Like, I feel like the characters... That's the thing, though. I mean, they can always... But we also don't know. Like, for all we know, the end of the story could actually go into some of the tragedy stuff. Like, maybe we have an epilogue that talks about the tragedy and explains this. Because that's the thing, right? Like, the characters could hypothetically survive this story and then die in the tragedy. Like, the big tragedy. Because we know that presumably the only students that survived originally we thought were the Makoto's class. But then we learned that... there was another class that survived, the remnants. So you have the survivors, you have the remnants. So it's not impossible to think that there couldn't have been some more people that survived beyond the survivors of Hope's Peak and the remnants of Despair. And it's also possible that Matsuda could be a remnant of Despair. I've talked about the possibility that we have actually not met all the remnants of Despair, and it's fully possible that Matsuda is also a remnant of Despair, and that would make perfect sense given his storyline. Like, he's gotta be... I mean, he almost has to either be dead or a remnant. Like, those are really the only two paths that I see forward for him. And that can also, in a way, be his choice between hope and despair as well. So I definitely think that he's going to probably die by the end of this story, but if he doesn't die, I'm definitely expecting him to be a remnant of despair. And if that is the case, then that will be very interesting to see how that all plays out in the context of the story, because I almost think it would be more interesting if he was a remnant. I just don't think that's going to be the case, because I don't really expect Matsuda to be in any other Danganronpa material. Like, I'm not expecting him in the anime, I'm not expecting him in Ultra Despair Girls either. And yeah, so I don't know, like, that's kind of the awkward thing here, is I'm kind of just expecting, but then again, you know, Izuru Kamakura, and like that led into something. So maybe I shouldn't be ruling out the possibility that Danganronpa 0, like, Matsuda couldn't become a character. Like, obviously there was a reference to Matsuda in regards to the Neo World program in Danganronpa 2, but yeah, I'm just of the assumption that he's most likely gonna die, as well as Ryoko, of course. At least thematically, symbolically, I should say. But yeah, this was a really fun set. This is, like I said, only a pair of chapters. We only got through chapters 5 and 6 of Volume 2. But both of those were juicy, meaty chapters. I thought Chapter 5 was excellent, and Chapter 6 was maybe the best chapter we've read in this entire story. I mean, getting a full-blown conversation between Matsuda and Enoshima was unbelievable. And obviously, just Junko just being Junko, and actually getting to see Junko be Junko with, like, an interesting character that wasn't Ryoko. Because obviously we've gotten to see Junko interact with Madurai a bit, but, like, Madurai is not that interesting, to be perfectly honest. Whereas Matsuda is very interesting. Matsuda is arguably the most interesting character in this story. I mean, like, Ryoko is really interesting, but it's like she's interesting more from a conceptual level, whereas I think Matsuda is actually just the most interesting character. So yeah, we got to see the most interesting character in the franchise interact and have a conversation with the most interesting character in this story, and they have an interesting relationship and dynamic, and assuming that I am right about what I think the connection between Matsuda and Enoshima are, a really interesting connection. And yeah, we just got some great fucking moments from Junko that I just loved. And like, oh my god, like, imagine like all in one conversation calling someone out for an Oedipus complex and then sticking your tongue down their throat. Like, the same, like, just like, who does that? Like, that's insane. And like, I love it too, because like, obviously, like, she was doing that to poison him so she could do, you know, it was all part of her plan or whatever. But I love that, like, legitimately there was probably a part of her that was like, oh, this motherfucker he's gonna show up and not get aroused, not get erect for me? Oh, we gotta fix that. Trust me, there was one part of his body that was not numb from that poison. So, yeah, good shit, man. Good shit. Like, Junko is so good. Junko is so good. But I'm really enjoying this story, and we're, like I said, 2/3 of the way there. But obviously, I don't expect this to be, like, what, another... I'm not expecting this to be that many more episodes. I'm gonna look to, like I said, do a pretty long session next time, and then after that, they're probably all going to be long from here. It's just so hard when I get to, like, within my window of where I don't mind cutting off, and we finished a chapter this good. And, like, it is going to be tough, because I'm assuming that, like, we're going to have a lot of chapters that are, like, incredible like this, but you guys know how much I love Junko. So hopefully the incredible chapters don't have a lot of Junko, actually. As much as I want more Junko, I'm willing to hold off on getting more Junko until the end. So, like, hopefully, because that'll make it a little easier to get through a bit more in the session here, because this is going to be a sub 2 hour part, which I was hoping there wouldn't be another of those, but it is what it is. Nonetheless, I had a lot of fun with this episode, and I'm really excited for more. Really curious to see what Matsuda's going to do, even though I think we generally have an idea what his ultimate decision's going to be, as far as more, just generally speaking, what he's going to do, and, yeah, how Ryoko's going to play into all this as well. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see the next scene between Ryoko and Yasuke and, like, how that's going to go down. I'm really excited for that. Because obviously now we have somewhat of a perspective of Matsuda, and we've seen Matsuda interact with Junko, and then obviously Ryoko, you know, assuming she wrote everything down in her notebook or whatever, she knows that there is some sort of, you know, based on Kamashiro's opinion, some sort of hidden connection between Junko and Matsuda, and obviously that's going to bother her because she's going to probably think, oh, Junko and Matsuda are like, she's going to be worried that Matsuda like loves him and like, you know, loves her and stuff, which is super ironic given in the chapter immediately after that, Junko and Matsuda made out. Really fucking funny, to be honest. And obviously, given the context of what I think is going on, it's also really funny because in a way, Ryoko's right, but not in a way that she'd imagine in a million years. Again, still assuming that Junko and Ryoko are in fact one and the same, but there's definitely some stuff in this chapter that actually made me a little less confident, but then there's things that made me more. Like, so I'm still pretty strong on that, though. I definitely still think that's where it's going, and I don't think anything's gonna, outside of just direct confirmation otherwise, I don't really think anything's gonna throw me off of this theory at this point, besides me being, like, them revealing that that is not the case and I'm wrong. But I feel pretty strongly about it at this case, and I think it's right? So it's not really a whole lot else to say there, but this was a really good session. I really enjoyed it. It was fun to get some more Danganronpa under our belt. And I'm really excited to get to the end of this. Like I said, I mean, obviously, even when we finish this, we're going to be transitioning to more reading, because we will be doing the S story. But we are creeping ever closer to getting back to kind of some of the regular content, or at least a little more regular for the channel, because we have the next game kind of creeping up to Ultra Despair Girls, finally. And then after that, we obviously have anime. So, like, while that'll be a first for Danganronpa, it's kind of my bread and butter on this channel. Like, the thing I do the most is react to shows, and you know, anime being a huge part of that, probably the biggest part of that. So, like, it makes a lot of, like, that'll be right up our alley, at least as far as the Flaming Shark and, like, the channel is concerned, even if maybe it'll be a little different for, what we're doing here and stuff, but really excited for that as well. But anyways, I think that's pretty much going to do it for our commentary on Part 6 of Danganronpa 0. Had a lot of fun with it. Really excited for more. Junko's insane. I mean, what else is there to say? I love her with a burning passion. She is one of my favorite characters of all time. And she is a goddess unlike any other. And getting the chance to actually have her be a serious part of this story, and presumably even more than that, if I am on the right track with my theory, has been a joy, and I'm so excited to just see where this goes, because like I said, we're entering the final third of Danganronpa 0 next time, and that clock is slowly winding down, and who knows what the fuck's gonna come next. So it's gonna be a crazy time, and I can't wait to share my experience with you guys. This should be going up on tomorrow, actually, for me, because it's it's 5:23 a.m. on the 16th of September. This will probably be going up on the 17th. It is funny because, especially, like, the Danganronpa videos get some popularity, but these in particular don't as much, anyways. But it is really funny because this will be going up after. This is probably one of the more niche things I do. It'll be going up the day after something completely the opposite, like probably one of the most, like, what'll probably be one of my most widely watched videos of the year in the Spider-Verse reaction. So it is just kind of funny that we go from something that's like, you know, ton of you guys are gonna watch, and then this is something that's a lot more niche. So it's just funny how that works out. But yeah, this should be going up tomorrow, I think, on the 17th. So that'll be good. And then we have other stuff coming after that, but I had a really fun time with this video, and I hope you guys did as well. So anyways, if you want to support the channel, my Patreon is down below in the description, as is my Discord server. And if you want to get in touch with me, DMing me on Discord is probably your best bet. Anyways, without any further ado, it is time for me to bid you adieu. The Flamin' Shark signing out. Hope you all have a wonderful, fantastical day, and I'll see you next time with another video. Thanks for watching. Peace.